What can I do for you? How can I help you? What do you want from me? What do you wish from me? This is a question that we're used to hearing a lot in our culture and our society. We hear it all the time when we walk into, a gas station, a coffee shop, a retail store, a restaurant. That's usually the first thing someone say. How can I help you? What can I do for you? Sometimes in the South, we might even get a little melp you. It's a contraction. Melp you. It takes on different meanings. Sometimes it's almost become like a greeting. Sometimes when I see people on our property at late at wee hours of the morning or late hours of night, I'll go up to them and say, "May I help you?" Which is really my nice way of saying, "What are you doing on our property this time of night?" But this is a question that Jesus poses in the gospel this week, and he'll actually pose it in the gospel passage that follows that we're going to hear next week as well. And so something that bears consideration. I mean, imagine if Jesus Christ was before you and he asked, "What do you want from me?" What would your answer be? I suspect that the answer to that question for all of us would be very revelatory. It would reveal where our hearts are at in our relationship with Jesus Christ. And if you think about it, that certainly is what happened in the case of James and John, the sons of Zebedee. He realized where their hearts were at the time, which was not in a great place. Now, I want to say this is not the Father Casey bash St. James and St. John hour. They're saints, okay? They got it. Both of the, St. James gave his life for the Lord. St. John spent his last years in exile for the Lord. They eventually figured out what true greatness is, what true glory is. But here they were very confused. Now, immediately preceding this gospel passage, Jesus makes the now third prediction of what's going to happen to him in Jerusalem as they're traveling there. And now for 3 times, his disciples, his apostles, his best friends, his closest colleagues, his best acquaintances, the people that he spends day and night with, once again either are not listening or do not get what he is saying. Because clearly, James and John think that Jesus is going to go into Jerusalem, be greeted as a king. Well, they got that much right. At least that's how it goes for Jesus at first. But that he would somehow militarily take occupation of Israel, take occupation back from the Romans, occupation of Jerusalem. And this is why they say, "Lord, can we sit at your right, sit at your left? We want to be a part of your glory." He says, "Well, yeah, can you drink from my cup? Can you be baptized in my baptism?" And they're like, "Yeah, King Herod, he has a great palace. He has pretty cups, I'm sure. Maybe his initials are on them. He has these lavish baths. Yeah, I'm down. We're ready. Spa day sounds great." And Jesus is like, "No, you don't even know what you're asking, James and John." But remember, they were okay with following Jesus. They're okay with giving Jesus their life and their allegiance and their loyalty as long as there was something that they could get out of it. If they could get something out of it, they were all in. A reflection on that notion should give us pause in our own life. What is my relationship with Jesus Christ about? Sometimes worship turns into self-worship, where it's really not about me giving glory, honor, and praise to God, but it's about chasing after emotional feelings, treating a God as a genie that I rub a lamp and make a wish and get what I want. And then what happens is when things don't turn out as we want them to, we get upset. We lose faith. We get mad. We say, God's not real because he didn't give me what I want. He didn't act like my fairy godmother. He didn't act like the genie in the bottle that's here to serve me and do my bidding. And I'm not even just talking about when people pray for, if people were to pray for selfish things. Right? And it's okay to pray for yourselves. It's okay to, I pray for $1 million all the time. Mostly for the church, but it's okay to pray. It's okay to even pray for material things. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm even talking about serious things. I got cancer and I prayed that the results weren't so, therefore God hates me. I lost someone very close to me who I love, therefore God hates me. I go through life with a terrible disability, deformity, or disease, therefore God hates me. I have serious medical issues, therefore God hates me. Or God isn't real. This is where the idea that God is some kind of great mysterious gift giver will lead us. Instead, we are challenged by Jesus to start thinking about what real power and real greatness really is. And it begins with service, reaching out of ourselves and serving other people. That's leadership. That's virtue. That's the power of God who empties himself for our sake. If you think about it, of everything Jesus says, there's probably not one message that is more countercultural, more counter to all the doctrines of the world, to everything that worldly power is, than what Jesus says here. If you want to become great, you should become the servant and the slave of all. And I know we are all sick and tired of hearing about politics. But this does speak something true. I mean, isn't it beautiful that this passage is here given to us in late October, where we have two people vying for what some people consider the most powerful position in the world, the President of the United States of America. And man, has it been a nasty, vicious, vitriol campaign. And I don't see it getting any better in the next 2 weeks. Where's that servant leadership? Where do we learn what greatness is and power is? This is why we should really not be looking, by the way, to civic leaders as our moral authorities at all. We look to Jesus Christ, who empties himself. A Catholic president once said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Which is really interesting because I hear a lot of promises about what your country is going to do for you if you pick a certain person. I mean, you know what I mean. I'm not being partisan. I'm just saying, you hear that, like, if you do this, this is what I'm going to do. But we've lost the notion of what true love is. True love is to lay down your life for another person. Many of you who are married, you understand that because you realize that the greatest gift I have in my life is to be able to give myself away. It's almost the great irony of life, that life, you don't truly understand life until you find something worth giving it away for. Till you find something like your spouse, your family, something you love. Think about so many people that work in industries or professions where they make very little money, but at very high risk. First responders, policemen, military personnel, teachers, all these folks totally pouring themselves out. But instead, in today's society now, we don't want to look for what I can do for my world, what I can do for my community. We worry about, am I having my me time? I'm actually starting to hear people confess not giving themselves enough self-care in the confessional. I mean, we should, take care of our health, but my goodness, please don't come to me because you missed your spa appointment. But that's the world. The world's becoming more and more egocentric, and Jesus Christ invites us out of that. And he doesn't just invite us out of that on ethical principle, on ethical teaching. He invites us out of this selfishness and self-promotion by the way he himself has lived his life. Think about just for one moment the very notion that the God whose very thoughts, whose very words spoke creation into existence, who placed the stars in the sky, gigantic balls of flame light years away from us, organized this planet, created the cosmos, created us, created our world and everything that we know and love. And that God became one of us, emptied himself completely in a sense of his humanity in order to show us how much he loves us. And if that in and of itself is not profound enough, that same God took on every form of human heartache, pain, suffering, and humiliation, allowed himself to be betrayed and hurt, beaten and bloodied, scarred, stripped naked, and tortured in order to show us how much he loves us. Allowed himself to die a terrible and gruesome death in order to show us how much he loves us. And that the night before he did all of this, he bowed down to wash the feet of his disciples. That's what leadership is. And we know in the church, that's what leadership should look like, and sometimes it doesn't. Certainly in the priests, sometimes we have priests that are all about me. Members of the hierarchy, sometimes all about me. And even in the parish, not our parish in particular, but you see this in a lot of parishes where positions in the parish become not about what I'm serving, how I'm serving the parish, how I'm proclaiming the word of God, how I'm leading other people to Jesus Christ, but instead become about my own satisfaction, meeting my own needs, giving myself social status and power and popularity when I couldn't do that in other avenues, thus transforming the church into just another social club or organization. But the call of Christ is that ultimate call to radical, risky, vulnerable, self-giving, self-emptying, self-sacrificing love. And that's the love that changes the world. That's the love that leads. So I invite us, as we prepare to continue with this Eucharist, to maybe close our eyes and imagine Jesus Christ, the King of glory, the Son of the living God, God incarnate himself before you, but reigning from the throne of the cross, beaten and marred and scarred, pierced hands and feet, a bramblous crown of thorns on his head. And imagine him looking directly at you. And in all of his suffering, all of his agony, all of his pain and hardship, he simply asks, "What do you wish me to do for you?"